Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
How's it
Hey,
going, Aaron? You doing okay?
Yeah, pretty good. How about you?
Yeah, doing all right.
Nice.
Just hooking up my audio properly.
okay.
I like your fancy SFEI background there.
Well, yeah, it took a while to paint my wall this color, but you know, enough gallons of paint made it happen. So,
There you go. It's all for a worthy cause.
yep.
Oh, cool. We have Walter on the line. I haven't heard from you in a long time. Walter, how you doing?
Pretty good. Hey, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. Hey, they don't, like, literally this laptop, my work laptop, does not have a webcam.
Oh,
Oh man.
I've been having to use
That's how
myself.
we roll here at Caltrans. The work laptop, a lot of them do not have webcams. It's special
Okay.
order, by the way, probably.
Yeah. Well, so have you just been holding regular teleconference meetings over the last few months without?
Yeah, we've
any
been all
visuals?
teleworking since March, and then yeah, a lot of WebEx. So just line them all up on WebEx, and a lot of screen shares, but a lot of us don't have cameras on the laptop. So
Right. And no one uses their phone for their camera?
the audio works fine. It's just there's no webcam, but everything else works fine.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I thought I'd reconnect. Kind of settled in now, doing all data stuff, but still working. A little bit helping out environmental. So.
Great. Good to have you.
Are you still leading that data task force for Caltrans?
Yeah, so the team is continuing on. Obviously, I'm no longer officially in environmental, but because there's a lot of data management requirements for the new permit that's coming up, I'm still in touch with them. And then see Gary on the line, we're actually, partnering up, but thinking about a presentation for Casco that's still in the works. But so I guess in that regard, yes, we're still doing the visual assessment automation project. So we're moving forward with that. So yes.
We're gonna hang on to you, Walter, as much as we can.
Yeah.
I know. I know. Letting go, but I'm still involved. So wearing two hats, I suppose. So data and trash.
Well, thanks for being here.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I guess looking forward to kind of seeing what the group's been up to in the last year.
So let's see, Win, do you want to start screen sharing or?
Yeah, I can. Oh, sorry. Actually, I'm not on my computer. Similarly to Walter, I don't have a webcam, so I use my cell phone.
Yeah.
But I'll take notes on the agenda.
Okay.
If
I'll go ahead and share my screen just so that everyone has the agenda before them. That's all right. Okay.
Cool. I wrote up this agenda so I could kind of give a first pass, and then if anybody else has agenda items they want to add, then we can definitely do that. So as many of you know, we've been working really hard on this trash taxonomy, and we are getting extremely close with all the great help and advice and hard work that you guys have put in on this team to advise us on the right directions to go. We're getting really close, I think, to writing up a publication, and I have an undergraduate who's going to be leading that publication this summer, and so if anybody is interested here, I'm kind of just putting out feelers for whoever is interested in being a co-author on that publication. It would be like a peer-reviewed publication, and then considering recent events as well as events that have been going on for centuries, I think it's definitely appropriate right now to reflect on how we as a group can be anti-racist and aid other anti-racist actions. I think that would be great to talk about that. And then I have a new project that I'm starting that I think is really has a lot of overlap with some other projects that we had put on our initial agendas. And so I kind of wanted to bring the discussion back up about artificial intelligence and developing artificial intelligence models. I have there's this group who's going to be putting a lot of funding into trash AI right now. So are there any other agenda items we should address today?
Do we want to just put an update in here on the Seedon and citizen science connections that you've been working on?
Yep.
Hey, Janet.
Hi, sorry,
Welcome.
I'm a bit delayed. I was on the join me and I realized we're on Zoom. So
Oh, okay.
Oh,
thanks.
yeah. Any other agenda items to add? Okay. Hearing none, I'll move on. So co-authorship on the trash taxonomy publication. So we're thinking about publishing the trash taxonomy, the relational tables, as well as some of the primary data. And we're hoping to publish this in, I'm thinking, an environmental science journal, but it could also go into like a citizen, or not citizen, computer science, kind of like data-driven journal. And we'll be definitely putting it towards something that's going to go through rounds of peer review. I consider everybody on this call co-authors, you know, on this project. You guys have all given a lot of really great perspective, and that's why I think, you know, if anybody, no matter what your degree is or background, if you have an interest in being co-author on this publication, that would be great. If you don't, we will certainly be acknowledging your contribution on the publication. So that's something else. I think this will really help to solidify this trash taxonomy and get the conversation started, get these tools out there, get them in the public eye, and start to get people talking about how the heck do we classify trash, and really there's going to be a lot more work to be done. I totally recognize that, but we've made a lot of headway, and I think it's worth publishing.
You know, something that I think is worth chatting about a little bit is that we've been breaking through the course of your great work on the taxonomy, and the discussions within this group, and going back to the kind of mind map that Andrew Hill first put out there. The taxonomy is really a great foray into categorizing trash, but then there were like a number of other components within the kind of trash monitoring world that would benefit from almost like companion taxonomies or standardization. So that could be the geospatial aspect of things, right? Just how do we characterize the types of assessments? And so having some standards along those lines is important. There's also the characterizing the assessment area in terms of various ways that you can try to look at land use, look at the different pathways that are operative within that assessment area. Looking at, so there are kind of like a number of different ways that you can characterize the landscape, and we find that in a lot of methods they do take great pains to draw up characteristics about the assessment areas. And so this is not at all to diminish what you're doing. In fact, it's saying that it would be great if what you're doing here, that there was some additional resources or equivalent type of effort put towards these other aspects of taxonomy or standards. And we'll be talking a little bit about that. So Shelley Moore and I in the trash monitoring methods work that we're doing, the playbook that's been alluded to. So we'll be talking about that kind of as one output from this group. So I just wanted to register that for all of you, that that from the very first moment that we started tackling the mind map, it kind of shaped different domains of necessary information exchange. The trash is maybe the most important, arguably, but then there's all of these different companion pieces to any assessment to make it real or useful, and so we just need to recognize there's more work to be done.
And Wynn, you just got me thinking a little bit. It seems that I don't know how deep you've gone into that, this idea yet, but it seems as though one of the things that could really sharpen it up and make a punchline is to try to draw as direct connection as possible the difference in utility for addressing specific management questions and assessing which action should be taken where, the effectiveness of those actions, between those real things and the the structure of the taxonomy. It seems like understanding it to the level that you do, you're one of the few people that's situated to be able to draw that thread all the way from the gross in the weeds details of how the structure of the taxonomy works and how that can facilitate or preclude addressing particular management questions. Maybe that's what you're already thinking, but you got my wheels turning.
Yeah, that Gary is consistent with one of the things that we talked about in the hackathon in February or January, where we discussed, and you probably recall this, Gary, but we said that it's really important to have the use case described in as much detail as possible about how the taxonomy would be used, because Wynn did a good job of saying that someone would plug in a value into this little like mini app that he was presenting, but the reason why someone would plug in the values and what the information coming out, how that would be used, was a little bit under described. And so I think that that's part of what you're talking about there, Gary, is to really spell out kind of what's at stake with being able to leverage a taxonomy like this, and how it helps. Even, thinking to point number 2, this part about anti-racist and different actions we can take. Among the things we need to do is also connecting to number 4, which is the citizen science, that if we can empower different community groups to take action locally, then and to have data that really matters. And part of having data that matters is to have data that can be conversant with standards and other types of ways of measuring things. And so the taxonomy, I think, can help to facilitate the translation of various ways to categorize trash. The example you cite, Wynn, is like the 6-ring plastic beverage trap, or what the noose for birds, depending on how you want to call it. Someone might call it a bird noose, and someone else would call it a 6-ring plastic beverage holder. So having a taxonomy that works for those would-be community groups is I think key to making sure that we're empowering people to take action.
Yeah, I mean, trash has such a strong environmental justice connection and crossover.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it seems like being able to highlight how a tool like this could help managers inform, science questions, absolutely, but also, more social environmental justice questions and equity questions.
That's a great point, Aaron. I think that, it would be great if you had some kind of hypothetical situations where a community is trying to decide whether the trash that they're finding in their lots or streets, if the trash is locally generated or whether it's being transported by wind, rain, dumping, different things like that. So how would a community group kind of make that assessment? The other thing, another example might be that they're finding trash that breaks down and poses hazards like plastic versus something that biodegrades like a paper, like cardboard boxes or something like that. And so that's where the taxonomy is important, because they would want to make sure that they're plugging the right values in to track, to distinguish the plastic trash and the types of plastic trash from other types of trash. And so that's where you could kind of talk about the value of that taxonomy and how those different assessments can play nice with assessments at a larger scale, taking the neighborhood scale and bringing it up to the city scale, and beyond that to the sub-regional scale.
Wayne, if you've got like a description or an abstract to send around, maybe that would help folks to assess whether or not we can make contributions to this or not.
Okay, that's
That would be, yeah, that would be great. I'd definitely be interested in helping if there's a space for that.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, we're just getting started, so I don't even have an abstract written up yet. So that will be our first thing, and we'll send you all a summary, and then you can make up your minds at that time. Thank you. Thanks for all the great feedback already. You got my mind thinking about tons of different things too. All of these ideas.
Do we want to move to number 2?
That was a pretty gymnastic segue you already made to number 2 there, Tony. That was impressive.
No, I'm eager to get to number 2. I think that you know, the things we're doing are not like, a lot of times the stuff that I'm up to has only a very loose connection to number 2, but I think in this case it's we can make some strong arguments as to the value of what we're up to here and how it connects. I think particularly I'm looking at Aaron and Jarma. That is, I think that number 4 and number 2 are either implicitly or explicitly connected, because being able to take data that might be otherwise trapped in someone's local spreadsheet that's representing a neighborhood's efforts to see trash changing over time in their neighborhood, that if that were part of a broader effort to have data go into a recognized statewide repository, that could be a big win. And win, I'm not referring to you with that. I mean, that could be a big victory, I should say. So it's, I think that really that's one of the things we're trying to do. One suggestion, though, it may be something we could be better at doing, is doing outreach to EJ groups. I don't know how many we have as, you know, kind of peripheral members of this group, but it would be great if we had, you know, different nonprofits or you know, groups that have an interest in connecting trash to environmental justice and the hazards that people routinely see in their communities.
Yeah. Do you know, is there anybody on the I can't remember the full title of the other subcommittee, but the homelessness subcommittee? Is there anybody over there who might have some contacts with EJ groups and stuff like that? They might know something.
I would suspect they do. Yeah, it's just a question of whether the EJ groups are interested in the homelessness part of it or the trash, you know, whether they see the trash as being the primary focus or just a kind of side issue.
Yeah. I was thinking more as that maybe as a starting off point into just getting more contacts and facilitating the outreach.
So there's one that I'm thinking about called Urban Tides in Richmond. So they're kind of in our backyard, and they do stream restoration and a bunch of restoration activities, but they have a pretty broad scope. And so I wonder if they have an interest in participating. So yeah, that's
what was their name again?
I don't actually, I should know how to pronounce it, but it's spelled Tilth. So it's urban Tilth. I don't know how to say that.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know how to either.
Tilt. Tile.
Okay.
Yeah. That's just one example, but there may be some. I mean, there are different groups that are interested in reducing plastic, and it's just a matter of kind of whether they see their mission driven primarily by environmental justice, or is it by kind of just environmental health in the general sense. So I should mention, while I'm on that topic, is that Shelley Moore and I have been in conversation with the Institute in San Diego. They reached out to us because they are interested in convening a hackathon related to plastic trash data. So we'll most likely, this will be coming up again in the main trash meeting the next time we have our main group convene. But just wanted to flag for you that that there's an interest. We put them in touch with the Nature Conservancy, who seems to be at a similar point of their thinking about how to manage trash related data. And if we didn't want to immediately loop you in, I know you're the trash data guy, but you have other responsibilities.
Thanks.
But
the trash data guy.
They're a group called PAGI. The name of the subgroup associated with Scripps is PAGI. It stands for Plastic Awareness something Initiative. Plastic Awareness, not group. Anyway, I can get you more details there.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm still kind of in the loop of those discussions, and maybe they'll be attending our next trash monitoring work group meeting. But they kind of have an interesting scope, and so the reason why I bring it up in this context is that they might be a bridge to other EJ groups who see the connection between plastic proliferation and environmental and public health.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. I wonder too. Oh, am I still muted? Oh, something that I've been thinking about. So our lab at UCR, we've been really motivated to do something, and we've been thinking a lot about how we can make sure that the institution and the structure of our group is being actively anti-racist, anti-sexist, anti-colonial, and thinking about how we can build in like rules and guidelines. And I just wonder, I don't know if this is maybe something that we could, I remember we had like a guidelines at for the whole work group, that we kind of went through, and this is like our charter. I don't know if that's something maybe we could revisit the charter and think about the charter from those lenses and make sure that we have like actively addressed all of those kind of things, and at least, thought about them in the way that we've drafted the charter. It could be that we may also decide to kind of draft our own charter, or our own kind of like rules, and this is how we as a group are actively trying to make sure that we are being inclusive and equitable, and yeah, I don't know. That's kind of a thought I had. I don't know if
you mean the data management, this group. Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea to think these things through, and I applaud your initiative on this, Lynn. I think it would be most appropriate though to do it at the work group level, not the subcommittee, just because quite frankly, I think it'd be more effective at that level, and kind of the way it would be, so that we're not kind of operating at odds from the rest of the subcommittee. So I think it would be great to agendize this for for the next work group. I think it's an important topic.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Okay, I'll get the ball rolling on conversation with them, and I think that's Shelly and
Shelly and Christine. Yeah.
Yep. Cool. I will contact them. Thanks.
Any initial thoughts on that topic at this point, or should we wait until it happens at the larger group level?
Sorry, in terms of like a charter or additions to a charter or something else?
Just if you have any further thoughts on it. One thought I have about the distinction between kind of being neutral or being anti-racist is, you know, just my understanding about it is that it's taking an active stance rather than just saying like, you know, we are remaining neutral, we're trying to be as scientifically objective. It's saying that we are taking active measures to stand against racism, recognizing that by just being neutral, then you're probably kind of playing into a number of the systemic, the structures that are promoting, you know, kind of racist, race-bound kind of initiatives. So that's, I think it's good for us to understand that it's more than just saying the typical scientific thing, which is that science is kind of set up to make sure that your personal bias doesn't kind of cloud the results of your experiment per se. But this is more saying, even beyond that, like we need to make sure that we are interrogating our actions to purge ourselves as much as possible, or to take an active stand against what would be otherwise potentially racist actions. So that's just something we have to bear in mind when we're talking about anti-racism.
I think one thing that I've been thinking about, and one thing we've been trying to incorporate into our group is like kind of simple principles that, you know, at first they don't seem like they would make it that big of a difference, but I think they really are like the heart. It's the accumulation of these small little steps that really makes up the anti-racist action. So like one of them, for example, is like we could have a rule that every day we make sure, like every meeting, we make sure that we've checked in with everybody on the call verbally. Because like there could be people who are getting on this call and they're like, oh, I can't wait until I have the opportunity to talk, because like people come from different cultures and there's different rules about how the meeting is structured and stuff, and they just never get the chance to talk because like, you know, we're just like going off and getting all excited about all these things, and we don't even recognize that we're excluding them. And so like adding a simple rule, like every time, like during every meeting for the first 5 minutes, we verbally check in with each person. Each person kind of has like a time where they can check in and add, you know, what have you been up to? I mean, maybe I should have just put on the agenda, like check in, you know, it's kind of that simple. And that's like one small step toward in the right direction. There's so many other things though that we could be doing. But that's just an idea.
Hey, Jarma, how's it going? We haven't heard your voice yet. Just want to make sure you're all right.
Checking in.
Just checking in.
Thank you. I'm doing well.
Right.
I appreciate the conversation and ideas, and thanks, Wynn, for putting that on the agenda.
Great. And Ross, we haven't heard you say anything yet. Are you okay?
Yep, I'm good. My microphone does work.
Okay.
I'm doing all right. I think this is a really good point to be bringing up too. Something that in the time that I've been working with Greg Gearhart over at the OEMA team, is like he's been really beating the drum of, and way before I even got there in February, was some of the projects we're working on. He's really made a whole point to say, hey, we want to make sure we're doing this not just to do it and check off the box that we did it, but to ideally see how we can use it to serve communities that are experiencing either racial or socioeconomic, inequalities. And I think that's something that's really played a big part in how we've shaped some of our ongoing projects, like it's unrelated to trash, but the Safe to Eat portal that we're working on to guide, subsistence anglers to say, hey, to the the wealthy upper middle class guys who go offshore fishing, this isn't for you. This is for the people who are literally going to the riverbanks and fishing for what's for dinner, generally much more poor communities. And I think that, by Greg really shaping that's been really helpful, not just in terms of, helping me realize what's important with this data, but also really ensuring that it is going to make a difference with certain communities. And I think that angle can be applied to all kinds of data use. So I think that's really an important distinction.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Ross.
Yeah.
That's really important for us to recognize. It makes me realize that, part of maybe what we should be thinking about is also how to fold in data that can help us to literally see communities that are overlapping with different areas of environmental concern. So in other words, that maybe having a disadvantaged community component to some of the visualizations we do can help to see the intersection of trash concentration and disadvantaged communities, not to have culpability to, because often it's what happens from there is look at how these poor communities are generating so much trash. But really what comes from that is often look how underserved these communities are in terms of trash collection or in terms of protections against escaped trash, right? And so there's as much hazard in the interpretation of the data as there are in how the data are visualized and everything else. So we need to, that comes to the point that you made earlier, Wynn, about kind of thinking through what we're doing. And, you talk about checking in and the small steps. And I think as we're moving forward, there are ways that we might inadvertently kind of reinforce certain stereotypes or certain assumptions before we think carefully about just how we're analyzing the data. So, but nevertheless, I think when we try to skirt them all together in the name of being neutral and let's not talk about disadvantage, then we aren't taking that active, engaged role that I think, Ross, you're alluding to by thinking about kind of how it matters to the different communities.
Yeah, this is Walter. So I think Wynn mentioned doing like a check-in of some sort for meetings. So I posted a link to the chat. There's a code of conduct because I volunteer with Code for America, and they had a pretty clear, conduct, I guess, policy before all this happened. And so just as an example or reference, but I think they try to lead by example of being inclusive and, obviously being, and having a more proactive approach. So.
Great. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Yep. Yeah. And they've been really good about, I volunteer every week and they cross promote events with a meetup called Women in Data that do data science, but just being really open and inclusive, and it's all nonprofit doing volunteer work in the data and web space, in a similar fashion, right? We're trying to benefit communities like that. So.
Yeah, that's great. And I think part of the reason why I was encouraging that is because there are already people doing this work. So, you're citing Code for America as a good example. I think there are probably a number of other examples too. So we don't really have to reinvent the wheel when we're either devising a code of conduct or figuring out how to connect with these communities. We just need to find the right people and cite the right groups and find people who are interested in this topic, rather than feel like it's upon us to kind of come up with new systems and create new groups. So this is a great reminder of that. Thanks, Walter. I wonder does anyone else have any further thoughts on this topic?
Just one that as far as an action goes, I mean, once we have the trash taxonomy kind of in a publicly consumable form, whether that be the peer-reviewed paper or whatever. Trying to make more of an effort with our outreach to make sure that disadvantaged communities are actually learning about it, learning how to use it.
Yeah.
That would definitely be a step in the right direction.
Yeah, so maybe, Ross, you were wondering kind of how we can enhance our web presence, and I think you found some information to help you move that along. But maybe something we can flag for the near future would be what types of resources we need to put online to make the taxonomy come alive. How do we kind of like build a step-by-step guide to how this can be used in a very practical way? So having the paper win is great to give it kind of its academic bona fides, but then kind of making it accessible. We can help to do that through our trash monitoring website. So maybe that's something that we can help to make a reality. And I think keeping it as simple and straightforward as possible, so as to be accessible to the majority of people, is something that we could pursue.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and that step-by-step simple like instructions are exactly what I've been hoping we could sort of craft, we being this community and also the citizen science subcommittee for citizen science groups, because I think that's one of the barriers to many citizen scientists, sort of on an individual level. It's just if they're not super familiar with the tech, just not really knowing how to approach it.
I know it's not on the agenda, but Aaron, I wondered, did you want Gary and I to present still the tools to your group? I think we presented to you, and then you said you would agendize it at some point. Is that still in the works?
Yes. Yeah, sorry, the meeting schedule for the citizen science community got kind of extended a little bit. But so yeah, I didn't make it on this last one. But yes, in the future, that is definitely a high priority.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, because I think those things are definitely in that category, right? Intuitive, easy to use apps that citizen scientists or anybody can collect information that, just illustrates the nature of the magnitude of a problem in their neighborhoods, right? Especially if it's collected in a way, in a form that can be used to drive policy decisions, right? If it's useful for cities to know where they should allocate their resources, and they're pressured to do that from the regulatory side, well, all the better. If it helps us learn about what types of trash are coming from where, that's great as well, because that can also drive policy decisions. But other resources, additional trash cans, pickups, education outreach, all those things, there's only so many resources in each city, and if that data can direct them where it should be focused, all the better.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Wynn, do you want to talk about number 3?
Oh, we still haven't checked in with Jana yet.
Hi, everyone. Thanks. I mean, I echo what you guys are saying. I think this discussion is super critical and important and just beneficial to us individually, but also as a group and to the public. I liked your point, Tony, in regards to just how this data is used and how we can be able to point it in a direction to benefit communities that need more help. I think having and that connection and discussion about data accessibility and the way to understand it, I think there's a pretty big gap for us that are kind of in the data weeds, details of everything, to be able to come to a higher level and kind of explain that to the general public in a way that's meaningful and that they can engage in, and not just it just kind of goes over their head because they don't spend as many hours just thinking through these things. So I think that's really critical to be able to give those accessible, simplified, but also meaningful tools for people to have. I just appreciate and echo other people's thoughts and appreciate the discussion that we're having here.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. Okay, all right. So artificial intelligence developments. So we've been talking a lot about how to detect trash using artificial intelligence to detect trash in images, how to use artificial intelligence to interpret data that we have on trash. There's a lot of applications for artificial intelligence, but one of the ones that I think are particularly interesting to a lot of people right now is deploying artificial intelligence on images which are geo-referenced, and using that as a way of tracking trash, because it is so labor intensive to track trash manually, that if we could just, I mean, Walter is working on so many things like this, using Google Street View to assess trash, using street sweepers. I've heard Uber drivers are being used. I know Gary's driving around with cameras and stuff too, and so there's so much. And Tony's been using drones to I don't know if you've been doing AI. I think you've been using AI on drones too. Yeah. So I mean, like, so many applications. And this group, the Benioff Ocean Institute, is they are funding 9 groups around the world, and our group is one of them. When I say our group, I guess I mean Andrew Gray's lab at UC Riverside is one of them, and they are going to be developing AI for river trash specifically. And so we don't want to be reinventing the wheel. We are reaching out to a bunch of people who are already doing great work, and have already laid a lot of the groundwork for this kind of work. I know I actually, maybe I should just invite them to be on the call for our next meeting, actually, honestly, because there's so many people in this one call that all have done this. Maybe that's what I'll do. But I just wanted to put it on you guys' radar, that this group exists, and they're putting in about I don't know, these 9 projects. I think there's like $10 million in the 9 projects, and they're going to be like collecting a huge amount of imagery and stuff. Not all of that is going into AI development or anything, but like just to give you a scope of what this project is, and it's 9 locations around the world. It's going to be pretty cool. So they're really trying to figure out how they can leverage all of this hard work and turn it into something really good. So
that's great. Yeah. Well, don't overlook the possibility of just having a side conversation with me and Shelly about the algorithm that we've developed, because it's right in the heart of what you're talking about with the riverine surveys.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I definitely will.
But I think bringing it to this group is totally appropriate. I think it'd be great to have that discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, and just it would be just neat to have a forum for I mean, across these different ways that we're trying to do this. There's common problems with dealing with the technology. I think it would be great to, I mean, what we're dealing with now is trying to interpret what we're detecting in imagery to a meaningful measure of the trash density in terms of like volume per area when the vehicle sort of moves here and there, and the camera angle can be a little bit different. And I imagine there's just similar technical challenges, you know, in all these different facets of trying to use this technology to measure trash. So that'd be a great place to just hear about what folks are doing and how they're solving those sorts of problems.
Last week, we met with a researcher at USC who is doing large trash detection. So whereas we're kind of interested in the smaller bits of trash that you'd find in a river, they're interested in some of the street-based items, and they're also interested in very large items. So how many shopping carts, how many refrigerators, how many washing machines are sitting in empty lots and things like that around the cityscape. So so they've developed what sounds like a very robust algorithm, because it has a 90% detection rate, which seems very high.
That's very high.
And they detect not just whether it's trash, but they categorize it according to, you know, refrigerator or washing machine. So that's something that we want to look into that a little bit more. But Gary, that might be a useful input for you you know, potentially if you wanted to kind of look at those things, because they do use video, like, as you know, and Walter, you as well. I know you're using video for at least one part of your source. So it's it's an interesting project that they've been working on, and we were meeting with them because we're both recipients of separate Oracle for Research. It's called Oracle for Research. That's the program, and we've been recipients of those grants, and Oracle put us both together in conversation to compare.
That's great.
So it's
yeah, if you have
kind
a
of
link to that work or some folks to talk to, I'd love to, Tony.
Okay, great. Yeah, I can share that. I'll share that with everyone here.
Okay. All right. Shall we move on to the last item, the CDIN citizen science update?
So Aaron, I don't know if you want to kick it off to talk about kind of what is the initiative within the citizen science group related to CDIN. Oh, are you on mute, Aaron?
Yes, I was. This was sort of an introduction to CDIN for a lot of people on the citizen science call, and kind of a way of keeping us all informed of where the process was of making CDIN more kind of data entry friendly for the layperson in particular, someone who doesn't have a lot of tech savvy and experience and that kind of stuff. So yeah, so Ross attended, and it was fantastic. He gave a sort of a quick, holistic view of where CDIN is and kind of some of the ideas of where it's going. And actually, Ross, if you want to flesh out more than that, go for it.
Yeah, sure thing. I did keep the whole thing pretty high level because how I left off with them was kind of, I said, once the taxonomy and this new template is kind of established, it'll be much easier to then guide that for citizen science groups to use when it comes to entering data. Thanks again, Jarmer, for letting me use that presentation. I just tweaked it a little bit when I presented it to them, which yeah, pretty much what Aaron said. It was really just like a pretty holistic overview of how CDIN works, how it's accessed, and how data gets added to it. And I kind of touched on RDCs a little bit too. But I've left off with Sherry and a few other people on the committee saying that, you know, bit of a holding pattern, but once I think we're almost all on the same page with getting the template together, and then once that's done, it's as simple as saying, okay, here's the template. So I think, and then even taking a step beyond the template, even perhaps getting some pretty explicit instructions and like a walkthrough of it, I think will be really beneficial for people who perhaps, you know, I think I definitely have a bit of a data bias. That's what I really kind of try to focus on. But some people are really like beach cleanup organizations. They're not doing this to collect data. They're doing this to clean up the beaches. So by taking advantage of having a template and then saying, hey, here's how you use this template. Here's the only fields you have to fill out. And if there's other ones you're interested in, go for it. I think it'll be really, keeping it as intuitive as possible, I think will be really helpful for the less data savvy folks. But that's not anything new, really. So I think that's I think there's definitely a ton of interest in the citizen science subcommittee in this, and I think it'll be really useful once it's ready to move forward.
Yeah, I definitely think so too. And thanks again, Ross, for coming in and giving that overview.
Yeah, it's no problem.
We should probably mention at this time that we were going to, Wynn and Shelley and I were planning to push forward with some further detailed work on bringing various methods into CDIN by either directly depositing the data resulting from these methods into CDIN and mapping any kind of transformations that are necessary prior to submission, or kind of coming up with a common universal concentration or density-based model for bringing the data into CDIN. The hackathon, though, as part of the upcoming data science symposium at the end of this month. Is it the end of this month, Jarma, or is it the beginning of next? End of this month.
Yes, the 29th and the 30th, I believe.
Great. Yeah. So the hackathon has been postponed or canceled, I think because of the challenges that we would face in a virtual environment. But the symposium itself is moving forward. But it's important for you all to understand that that particular item won't be featured, at least not right now. But it will still remain a need.
Yeah, I think we're hoping to. The next hackathon, datathon, is scheduled for. I think we're shooting for November at this point, and or either late October or early November. That's still kind of tentative right now, which is also going to be virtual. But I think that is kind of what we're hoping to make a pretty significant aspect of that one, and because we can't do it in June, if we can do it at the next one, I think that would be ideal. But we're still talking about the logistics of that datathon as well as the kind of focal point of it. But I think it's a great idea to make that a pretty relevant aspect of it.
Great.
All right. I think one of our next steps for the citizen science group was that they were going to review the current template and give feedback. So I sent that along, Jarma, to the citizen science group, so there may be some new comments appearing on that document.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, is there anything else people would like to talk about before we head off?
I think we actually covered a lot of topics in a short period of time.
Yeah, we did a good job. This is pretty productive.
I had a quick question. I was just wondering when the next trash work group meeting was going to be held.
We try to meet quarterly. So we met last month. So I would expect to meet probably around August or so, sometime in that next quarter.
Okay, awesome. I'm guessing the details for that will come out when they're fleshed out.
That's right. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks.
I had a question for Tony. Were you and Shelley doing work with comparing methods?
Yes.
Where are you on that project?
So so this is the trash monitoring methods playbook project, and so we have we're wrapping up the field testing report. This is a report that comes as a result of field testing a number of 4 different methods, and we'll be sharing that with the TAC associated with the project. Following that, we'll be able to develop the playbook, which is kind of a higher level thing where the field testing report is a little bit more detailed and technical, meant to provide some assurance that the methods we were testing were tested thoroughly and according to good methodology. And then the playbook is more of a mapping of management questions to different methods. What types of methods can address what types of management questions, in other words, with taking into account the expected levels of accuracy and precision and practicality and cost. So that playbook is designed to be more accessible to different agency people as well as citizen scientists and things like that, where it distills things down into kind of more of a summary form with reference to the field testing report as would be expected if you wanted to understand some of the statistical analysis. And as far as timing goes,
Yeah.
the field testing report will be available this summer. The playbook will be available by, we're anticipating around November.
Around when?
November.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, I have the next steps that we'll be doing are I'll send an abstract for publication to the whole group, and to get your guys' feedback if you'd like to be co-authors or not. Then I'll contact the work group leads, ask them about reassessing the charter, and make sure not to reinvent the wheel when we do that. Also, I guess another thing that I didn't add to this was reaching out and doing more research into who else we could bring to the table. And then I will reach out to the BOI group and see if maybe they would give a presentation to us on what their plans are, and also connect them with Tony and Shelley. And then the citizen science group is going to be giving feedback on the seed-in template probably in the next month or so.
Do you think, Wynn, that we should probably reserve an entire meeting to talk about kind of the imagery collection and artificial intelligence?
Yeah, it's a big topic. I think so. I don't know if we want to do it at the next one or maybe the following one. Maybe 2 months from now. They'll have a lot more fleshed out by then.
Yeah, I think probably giving a little bit more time. We don't want to take up multiple meetings with this. If we can concentrate it, that's probably better off for everybody. But it would be great to have just the entire meeting dedicated to it so that we can really take stock of different approaches. And I would imagine there could be spin-off topics from that and different conversations that form.
Yep. Okay. I will do that maybe 2 months. Okay. Cool. Let's see. Anything else I should add to the next steps?
I think that looks good.
Okay. Thank you all. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you, Wynn. Thanks for guiding us through it.
Thanks, Wynn.
It's great to see you all again.
Yeah, thanks, Wynn. Thanks, Tony.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. See you later.
All right.
Guys.
Talk to you guys later.
See ya.